And good afternoon to all of you. This is Michael Cheney here. I'm just giving you a very brief welcome as I welcome all of you to the Energy Efficiency and Green Building Forum. We're so happy that Duke Energy has sponsored this section of our virtual conference, and want to encourage you to type in your questions and your comments right into the chat. It's something that all of our participants will be able to see, and a great way for us to get some questions directly to our participants, to our presenters, as they're as soon as they finish their presentations. And so without further ado, let me turn it over to Mike Rogers.
Michael, thank you for that introduction. And I just want to give kind of a snapshot of who we're going to be hearing from today. And also, as Michael has already said, thank Duke Energy for sponsoring this event. And one of our wonderful board members and colleagues, Melvin Philippot, for being involved in this event for a number of years now. So we're going to be hearing from a lot of different folks. We have been doing this forum for a number of years, and the forum continues to grow and continues to expand, and it has again this year. So to start with, we're going to hear from Brad Gore with Florida Power and Light, Barry Fask with Florida Green Building Coalition, current president of the board with FGBC, Sharon Wright with the City of St. Petersburg, the Sustainability and Resiliency Director, Duan Andrade with the Solar Energy Loan Fund, and Chief Strategic and Financial Officer with SELF. And Stacy Phillips is going to be kind of wrapping us up as we go to our presentation. Stacy is with Duke Energy. She is the manager of renewable products and services, and we'll be talking about a brand new program that Duke is launching. So our next presenter is Barry Fask, president of the board of Florida Green Building Coalition. I'll let Barry tell you a little bit more about himself, and again, Barry, welcome to the forum as a first-time presenter for FGBC.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Mike, and welcome everybody that's here at the meeting. Very appreciative of being here with the Florida Housing Coalition and their 33rd anniversary and their first ever virtual conference. So I think we're doing a great job meeting with all the technological challenges, etc., and nice learning curve. So that being said, I want to step away so you can see my background here for a second. That's the Florida Green Building Coalition. Some of you all know about us, some of you don't. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're about. And it kind of ties in here because as we look at our conference and our meeting here right now, we're talking about energy efficiency and green building. And energy efficiency has a lot of different ways to be thought of. But one way I want to consider for everybody out there, whether you're a local government, whether you're a 501c3 organization, a builder, a contractor, whatever, think in terms of energy efficiency of your own personal energies. A lot of times we focus on trying to do a lot of things and everybody's duplicating those same efforts. So as much as possible, we want to encourage everybody to work along with others, share your ideas, find best practices out there, and that way we're working and saving our own energies that can be better put to use in other directions. If you want to go to the next slide. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I actually am a native Floridian. My family history goes back into the early 1900s in South Florida. So we've seen a lot of differences, and family history talks about the Seminoles coming down the Miami River and dug out canoes, etc. So that's kind of a little bit of my background. I've been involved with environmental issues and all for many years, ever since I'm a kid. Always involved in community affairs, my entire family, and involved with the Florida Green Building Coalition for the last 10, 11 years, president for the last 2 years, and also a certifying agent for green building. Our group, as we go through the slide presentation now, just want to let you know that all this is going to be available in the virtual exhibit hall. We have 21 slides. I'm not going to dwell on any one of those, but we're going to hit a couple of highlights I want to mention to you, but encourage everybody to go to the virtual exhibit halls to see a little bit more details. Here on this slide here, we're talking about the this is a huge point that I want to bring forward at the bottom there. You know, as we go through the certification process, it's very important that you have somebody involved from the very beginning when you're thinking about planning a development or going about getting more efficient with your local government or your high rise or your land developments, et cetera. Along with those conversations with the architects, the contractors, the builders, the engineers, you should also have a green building consultant to try to identify things that can cost you zero difference in money as long as it's planned in from the outset. The worst thing you can do is try to have something that's totally designed and try to go in after the fact to redesign. You're re-engineering, wasting money. You're doing duplicates on the architecture, wasting money. That's not the way to go about this. So involve somebody at the very beginning to have those conversations and work your way forward. Next slide. When we talk about green buildings, what we're looking for is trying to be efficient with everything. So along with energy use, we're looking at water use, and that translates, especially in the affordable housing industry, to a lower bill. So the tenant or the owners wind up being able to afford living in that property much easier if they have a lower bill every month from the electric bill or the water bills. And that goes a long way. So as we put things in design initially, we should always think about these things as an added cost, not as an added expense. The cost is going against a benefit. So over time, whatever's being spent in the upfront cost are usually returned, and many times over as you go through the useful life. We talk about renewable energy as solar energy. That's something we want to be encouraging. And I want to do a little shout out to FBL and the Babcock Ranch project over on the West Coast. It was the first solar town in the US, actually maybe even the world. And what we have is land that's set aside for solar placement, solar arrays. And over time, this is going to have a little bit over 19,000 homes there. The entire facilities, plus about 6 million square feet of commercial space, is all going to be powered from solar energy. So that's a great way to go about this. And I'm very honored to be here on this panel here together with Duke Energy and FPL, who provide the power to the people across the state of Florida. Next slide. In terms of what we're looking for when we're planning, we want to take in consideration the occupants that are going to be in there. So you work out in terms of the design and construction, as we say, as you're involved from the outset. Sometimes there's little slight tweaks that you can offer. So somebody, if they're in an upper age group, you can do little tweaks in terms of the size of openings to allow for future wheelchair access, or having everything done in a way that people can age in place instead of having to go to another facility. So that's universal design. It's easily to be incorporated. And when we talked earlier about the efficiencies of our own personal energies, I want to encourage everybody to go to the Florida Green Building Coalition's website. That's floridagreenbuilding.org, because every one of our standards, whether it's for land development, for homes, for high rises, commercial buildings, they're all right there. And the state of Florida has standards that they accept for third-party green certification. I'm proud to let everybody know that the Florida Green Building Coalition is one of only 4 that the state of Florida accepts for their own buildings and universities. Next slide. We talk about green building. There's one thing that people don't realize oftentimes, that we do want to try to maintain as much of our open space as is practicable. And we can already identify certain areas that really need to be preserved, other areas that are, have already been developed that we can be redeveloping. And there's areas that we may want to consider, should it be developed or not. So the first thing I'd like to encourage that we set aside those areas that we want to be preserving as we go through this process. If we have an existing structure, it's always more energy efficient and more environmentally sensitive to actually reuse that existing structure. If it doesn't fit the needs, then certainly it can be rebuilt, restored. Sometimes just we can take and rebuild the existing building and employ a lot of techniques to upgrade it to a higher standard. Next slide. One of the things that's in use, as long as what Brad was talking about and taking a look at your energy efficiencies, is what's called a HERS score, Home Energy Rating System. And just like he was looking at a Q there that indicates how much better he can improve his energy uses by making some changes, there's actually a test that's looked at as a standard that's been around since 2006. We can take a look at how much less energy you're using compared to a standard home. So if we look at standard building practices going back to the early 2000s, that's going to use a certain amount of energy. And typically, if homes are built to the higher standards, such as what Florida Green Building Coalition is suggesting, that you wind up with a structure that's saving anywhere from 30 to 50% on that energy bill each and every month. So these things can be incorporated. And there's simple things we look at when we're looking at a home. We're looking at 8 different standards that we're identifying. Energy performance is one. We're also looking to install proper fixtures so we don't waste water. We're also looking, especially right now, as more and more people are spending time during COVID-19 in their homes and apartments, we want to have that clean indoor air quality. So we want to use the right type of filtration. We want to have the right type of ventilation. We want to realize that there's things that can come into the house that are toxic that we want to make sure we filter out. We want to make sure that the building envelope is done in such a way that it doesn't allow air to come in that's not planned on. It's okay to have some air infiltrating as long as something we're incorporating into the design. And here we had a couple points along with those conservation issues is disaster mitigation. Here in Florida, we're no strangers to disasters, whether it's storms, floodings, hurricanes, termites. All these things are incorporated into our standards to make something that's going to be more durable. And we're looking to encourage more resilient structures across the entire state of Florida. And there's no reason these should not be including our affordable housing, which we have our history working with the affordable housing industry for over 20 years. Next slide. What we're looking for is the benefit for the home buyer, the builder, and community. We design things in such a way where we get input from a lot of different people. It's not just the development community, it's the environmental community, it's the chambers of commerce, everybody coming together to set standards. We're always looking to set our standards above what's required by the building code, because people need to understand the building code is really just the lowest possible way you're allowed to build here in the state of Florida. It's not something to strive for. That's the minimum possible. And there's no reason that we shouldn't try to go more than that in terms of our affordable housing structures. And anybody out there from the local governments as well as the state, there's no reason we shouldn't ask our developers to go beyond the minimum requirements, because oftentimes, as long as they see a benefit, they'll go ahead and go for it. Next slide. In Florida, we talked a little bit about this, you have a choice. We like to encourage you to consider the Florida Green Building Standard along with your developments, and coming up shortly is why. Next slide. This is just a comparison of the 4 different units that are acceptable by the state of Florida. Next slide. And on the past slide, it mentioned something about a resource. We do want everybody to look at the Florida Green Building Coalition as a resource for everything in your green building information. So contact us directly, reach out to any of our certifying agents. We're here to try to help you out. And this here is an important point, that of the ones that are accepted by the state of Florida, we're the only ones that are specific to the criteria of the heat and humidity that is the state of Florida. Next slide. Especially anybody that's just gone through the month of August. This graphic right here tells you a lot. We take a look here at the climate zones across the entire country. There's a lot of colder climates. There's a few warmer climates, such as we have like in southern Texas, Louisiana, and the state of Florida. And especially if you take a look at the very tip of the state of Florida, we're actually subtropical. So we have a lot to do with heat and humidity, and dealing with humidity in terms of comfort, as long as with setting a certain temperature range that we're hitting. Next slide. We're endorsed by a lot of different groups, including the state legislature, League of Cities, etc. We are Florida. We're here to stay, and we want to be your resource. Next slide. We have 5 different standards we touched on. Right now, our focus is with the affordable housing with homes, but we do entire developments, land developments, local government standards, as we talked about, commercial properties, high rises. All these standards are available on our website to take a look, and will help guide you through anything that you're considering to bring out of the ground. Next slide. Here's going to be a couple slides, just touches on a couple photos of examples of homes and developments that are very user-friendly as well as attractive, and they're hitting all our green building standards. Next slide. That's on our homes. We'll wheel through these next ones. Our land developments, we touched on Babcock Ranch, Alice Beach is another one. Next slide. Local governments, a lot of different local governments have gone through this process. It's great. It's something that's repeated every 5 years, and we encourage everybody to take a look at our standards and take a look about incorporating Florida Green Building Coalition standards as far as what you want to see achieved on your larger developments within your cities and counties. Next slide. Commercial buildings, once again, nice attractive solar array on this one here. Next slide. High rise, attractive, super efficient. Next slide. What we have is, as we go through the standards, this is just an example. When we break down these different areas, as you'll see on the website or when you contact one of our certifying agents, we can walk you through each and every one of these points and what it's required to achieve those points towards certification. Next slide. This is our contact information. Here to help you out. Pleasure to be a presenter here today with you all, and look forward to questions at the end. Thank you all very much.
Here's a question right now. Can I go ahead and there's a relevant question in the chat here. And that question is, you were mentioning about, totally powered by solar energy. Does powered totally by solar energy mean a house or a commercial building would not need to connect with the local utility company?
No, definitely not. What there is, there's, for example, at Babcock, there's an array that's out there that's run by FPL, and it's going to have hundreds of acres that are set aside now, and more acreage that's be added on as more homes and commercial buildings come online. But every property needs to be dialed into the grid. As far as the solar energy, using Babcock as an example, solar is what's generating enough power that's going to be supplying what's necessary for the entire development. That's going into the grid, and then that's being dispersed by FPL according to their logistics, whatever is necessary. Within the development itself, there are some of those properties that do place a solar array on their own homes, so that can offset part of the cost of any excess energy coming in directly from FPL if they're generating some of that power on their own. There's even some properties that are looking to be total zero energy homes, in which they're going to be generating enough energy by themselves for their own personal usage. So those are the three different tiers that you're looking at. There's a couple different ways that things need to be handled in terms of being self-sufficient if the grid goes down, but that's a lot more technical, and there's ways to handle it. The chief things to realize here, there's a huge safety issue to having things that are going to be powered up when the FPL or Duke Energy people are out there after hurricanes trying to working on the line. So there needs to be a way that handles allowing this energy to be used from batteries into the homes without putting anybody at risk that's working on the power lines.
Barry, the Florida Green Building Coalition certification, question about that. How many, well, they phrase it, how many affordable housing projects, how many residences in Florida have been certified?
Well, actually, we're the #1 rater of structures across the state of Florida. Currently have over 23,000 structures certified across the state of Florida. And an interesting factor, since we're talking about affordable housing, the #1 group of structures certified within the state of Florida is actually affordable housing. So there's no reason, the knee jerk oftentimes, I talked to somebody that was looking to, they're very philanthropic, and they were looking to donate some funds to a structure that was going to be built down in South Florida. And when they're heavily into the environmental initiatives, and they asked about, well, what about it going green? Can't we do that? I said, no, that's going to cost us double. I said, well, you really need to see a different developer to talk to, because that's not the case at all. The differential to go green and get certified, which is what we recommend, is anywhere from 5 to 10% is a typical basis. And what we're working on right now is identifying different attributes that are going to be looked for by the next generations coming online, that they're going to put more and more value of what these things to be incorporated, that they're certified, that they may have low energy usage, they're healthier, low water use. All these things are going to be added. And so when you get the generation X, Y's, and Z's come along there, they're going to want these things. So that's going to add to the value of these properties over time.
Barry, I want to thank our participants again. Great questions that are coming in. Barry, is the Florida Green Building Coalition related to U.S. Green Building Council or a member of USGBC? I think that's the same thing.
No, that's a great question. Actually, one of the 4 standards that's accepted by the state of Florida is US Green Building Coalition. That's the lead designation. Florida Green Building Coalition is Florida Green. Both of organizations are totally independent and happen to be they started around the same time, right in 1999. So we're both 20 years old. The difference is that we're starting out as a grassroots local organization made up with builders, developers, environmentalists here within the state of Florida that live here, understand that our challenge is with the termites, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the heat, the humidity. Oh my gosh. And it's very different than worried about things to be done to avoid frozen pipes that they have to worry about in the northern climates. So the U.S. Green Building is something that's actually an international standard that was started by the U.S. government. And so it's kind of taking 2 separate pathways. So I'm not saying they're not a good organization. They definitely are. And they're one of the 4 that I certainly recommend any cities and counties to allow for what's being accepted for their own buildings, universities, or affordable housing projects. But the one thing that we have that specifically, we deal a lot with the heat and humidity factors that are going to wind up with a more comfortable environment if things are considered in terms of humidity when you're building here in the state of Florida.
Here's one last question relevant for this time here, and it's asking about your website, but just in general, it's a question about municipalities. Are there any municipalities in Florida that have integrated these standards into their building code? Any notable city leaders that you want to mention?
No, you're going to put me on the spot. I mean, we have a plethora across the state of Florida. Manatee County just achieved our platinum rating. So a big shout out to those over there. I live down here in South Florida in Hollywood, and I was actually part of a Green Team Advisory Board to the City Commission down here. And the City Commission in Hollywood adopted the criteria to require third-party green certification on any structures over 20,000 square feet. Miami Beach, Miami-Dade County, across the entire state, there's a lot of different cities and counties. We have, I think, almost 50 across the state. Wellington is another great example to take a look at. And I know Volusia County and a number of others are looking to incorporate the standards to go for it. And we have meetings on a monthly basis, since you're talking about that. If somebody is thinking of going in that direction, we'd welcome you to come join Florida Green Building Coalition, come reach out to us. We'll have you attend our monthly meetings where we're looking to try to team up to guide you through the process of getting your city certified and have you understand what benefits there are to the community, as well as to the city, as well as to the bottom line for the city.
Super. Thanks to our participants. Let's hope that chat keeps up. And I think that's all that we've got right now. Mike Rogers, back